Biological systems are not passive biochemical assemblies. They are, in fact, dynamic information processing networks in which electrical, chemical, as well as mechanical signals continuously encode, transmit, and interpret information. From the standpoint of system biology and neurophysiology, biological signals are structured carriers of information that regulate state transitions across cells, tissues, organs, and so forth. And so, electrical signaling in particular represents one of the most rapid and scalable mechanisms by which living organisms coordinate internal function and communication. At the cellular level, bioelectricity emerges from ion gradients across membranes. All living cells maintain voltage differences generated by ion channels, for example, pumps, as well as transporters. These membrane potentials are not restricted to neurons. For example, epithelial cells, immune cells, stem cells, and even developing embryonic tissues maintain bioelectrical states that influence gene expressions, migration, and differentiation. And so the membrane potential acts as a control variable, integrating environmental inputs into intracellular decision making information processes. In excitable tissues such as neurons and cardiomyocytes, electrical signalings become temporally precise and spatially propagative. Action potential, for example, represent discrete all or none electrical events that encode information in their frequency, timing, as well as patterning. In the brain, large scale coordinations of these action potentials generates oscillatory dynamics observable as alpha, beta, gamma, as well as other frequency bands. These oscillations are structural communication across neural assemblies by synchronizing excitability windows and enabling phase dependent information transfer within the biological brain. Other parts of the biological system, such as heart, for example, provide another example of organized bioelectrical communication. Cardiac pacemaker cells in these specific nodes generate rhythmic depolarizations that propagate through conduction pathways, ensuring coordinated contraction. The electrocardiogram, for example, captures these electrical wave fronts at the macroscopic level. And more importantly, the heart is not merely a pump and dump organism, but an electrically regulated system whose timing precision is essential for systemic perfusion and metabolic stability of the biological organism. In other parts of the biology, for example, electrical signals are highly integrated with chemical signaling networks as well. For example, calcium waves, neurotransmitter release or hormone secretion, and second messenger cascade all couple to changes in membrane potentials in the biological system. In this sense, bioelectric signals function as rapid triggers that gate slower biochemical pathways, and the integration of electrical and molecular signaling forms a multi-layered information architecture that supports adaptability across time scales ranging from milliseconds to hours to even days. Now, beyond neurons in the brain and cardiac cells in the heart, bioelectrical gradients guide morphogenesis during developmental phases in biological systems, for example, where research in developmental biology has demonstrated that voltage gradients across embryonic tissues contribute to pattern formation, limb generation, and organ positionings. Altering bioelectrical states experimentally can induce changes in anatomical outcomes, indicating that these gradients encode spatial information about form in the biological system. And bioelectricity thus participates in long range tissue coordination, functioning as distributed control system for growth and repair of these embryonic cells. From an information theory as well as information science perspective, these biological electrical signals carry both syntactic and semantic content. The syntactic level consists of measurable parameters such as amplitude, frequency, phase, as well as spatial propagation. The semantic level, on the other hand, emerges from biological context in which these parameters are interpreted. So, a burst of action potential and its electricity in the neurons of the brain in one neural circuit may signify sensory detection, while a similar burst elsewhere in the biological system may encode motor initiation. And so, meaning is therefore context dependent and relational within the network architecture of these biological systems. Homeostasis depends fundamentally on such electrical signaling networks within the biological system, where homeostasis refers to the maintenance of internal stability through negative feedback mechanisms regulating temperature, glucose level, and much more. And electrical signals within the biological system enables rapid detection and correction of deviations from set points of the homeostatic states within the biological system. So, sensory receptors transduce environmental or internal changes into electrical activities, which is then processed centrally and translated into effector responses. On the other hand, allostatus extends this concept by emphasizing predictive regulation rather than merely reacting, for example, to events with happen to the biological system. The biological system anticipates future demands and adjusts physiological parameters accordingly. So, for example, neural circuits integrate prior experiences of the individual with the current sensory input that happens in the environment of the individual, and also adding contextual cues to preemptly modify cardiovascular tone or metabolic allocation or hormonal releases or neural oscillation and neural activation within the brain in the biological entity. So, electrical signaling in this system is the primary medium through which these predictive adjustments are coordinated across distributed networks, allowing the biological individuals, such as you and I, to be able to be a predictive machine as to what it should do and behave and be and transfer information within, such that it could be in this allostatus predictive machine of an environment to make sure that it, for example, protects itself from potential harm and danger. More importantly, biological electrical signaling is hierarchical. So, for example, local membrane events influence cellular state of the biological system, which aggregate then into tissue level patterns, which in turn affect organ level dynamics. Now, the brain, for example, exemplifies this multi scale architecture where microcircuit oscillations, neural oscillation, scale up to large scale neural networks coherence, measurable through, for example, EEG or MEG. Coherence across neural networks correlate with attention, for example, perception, executive control, illustrating how electrical activity and electrical synchrony shapes cognitive functions of the individual. Even our immune system engages in electrically mediated communication channels. So, although traditionally viewed as chemically driven, immune system exhibits membrane potentials that influence activation thresholds and migration patterns. So, neuroimmune interactions demonstrate bidirectional electrical and chemical coupling between nervous system and immune systems. And so this cross system integration highlights that bioelectrical information is not confined to one single organ such as brain, but permeates the organism as an integrated network within the whole biological system. Mechanical as well as metabolic signals further modulate these bioelectrical states within the biological system, where stretch sensitive ion channels, for example, translate mechanical deformation into electrical responses, linking movement and tissue load to cellular behavior. Similarly, metabolic status influences ion channels, conductance, and excitability. The organisms, therefore, operates as a unified information processing system in which electrical, chemical, mechanical, as well as metabolic data streams converge all together. Collectively, all of these unified information processing bioelectrical systems, as well as chemical and metabolic data streams, they all form what can be conceptualized as an indigenous information field within the biological entity, such as you and I. This field is not mystical but physically instantiated through ion flux, electromagnetic propagation, molecular diffusion, and network topology. Its function is, though, to coordinate action, maintain viability, and enable adaptive behavior in biological entities. And so, biological intelligence at its foundation arises from this continuous internal communication and dynamic regulation of the biological system. Understanding biological electrical signals as structured information stream has implication beyond physiology. If living systems, for example, are fundamentally signal integrating architecture of these electrical streams, then interfacing with them requires alignment with their coding principles. So, technologies that read or modulate electrical activity, such as neural recording systems, cardiac monitors, and bioelectric stimulation devices, already demonstrate that biological information can be measured and influenced through engineered systems. And so this all leads to the concept of symbiotic intelligence. So if the next generation AI and humanoid system are to function as extensions rather than external tools, they must, though, incorporate these biological systems as additional information dimension. For example, brain neural oscillation or cardiac variability or peripheral bioelectrical patterns and metabolic indicators can serve as high resolution data streams informing adaptive AI behavior rather than operating just by environmental inputs, for example. And so in this framework, the symbiotic intelligence become the structured coupling of biological information fields with artificial computational systems where electrical signals that currently regulate homeostasis as well as allostatus within the biological body could potentially become the supplementary inputs guiding these responses within, for example, next generation artificial neural networks. I hope you guys found this topic of discussing bioelectrical activities within biological system as exciting as I do, and I hope you enjoyed today's video. I'll see you guys next time. Thanks for tuning back in. Bye.